Of homes. Trees are down. Damage is widespread. We know police blocked off roads and enforced a curfew overnight. Many homes and businesses left without power. In some cases, they are just exposed to the elements completely, with roofs and walls completely gone. The city says at least 5,000 buildings between homes and businesses have been damaged. This recovery is going to take some time.
Fox Weather's Katie Byrne. A setback for President Trump's big, beautiful bill.
Despite failing to clear the House Budget Committee, House Republican leadership staff says the committee will once again meet late Sunday night. If the big, beautiful bill advances, leadership staff expects a full House vote by the end of the week before the Memorial Day recess. The bill contains President Trump's agenda on taxes, spending cuts, border security, and energy. Republicans, though, have disagreements with some of the reforms to Medicaid, and blue state Republicans would like to see an increase in the state and local tax deduction. On Capitol Hill, Ryan Schmelz, Fox News.
Once again, the Supreme Court's blocked President Trump from using the Alien Enemies Act to send undocumented Venezuelan migrants back to their home country. The justices were granted a request that was asked for by the ACLU. The president suspects the men are gang members. America is listening to Fox News.
Connect to Fox News Audio on the Fox News app. Listen to hear your favorite hosts like Brian Kilmeade, Jimmy Fallon, and Guy Benson standing up for what's right, live and via podcast. Just click listen, then swipe right and hear the latest news updates on your time. And scroll down to hear the latest podcasts from Fox News. And it's even easier to listen in the car with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Get programming alerts and notifications. Fox News Audio is on the Fox News app. The voices America trusts. Download it now. From the Fox News Podcasts Network.
I'm Ben Domenech, Fox News contributor and editor of the Transom.com daily newsletter, and I'm inviting you to join a conversation every week with the smartest thinkers out there about the issues Americans face and where we're going as a nation. This show will feature deep dive interviews with newsmakers and some of your favorite Fox News analysts. I hope you'll join me as we dive into the fray. It's the Ben Domenech Podcast.
Subscribe and listen now by going to foxnewspodcasts.com or wherever you download podcasts.
93 WIBC Mobile News. On the level, on the go.
Deadly tornadoes across the Midwest. I'm Jarrett Lewis. Here's what's trending this hour. It'll take a few days for the National Weather Service to figure out just how much damage Friday's storms left behind, according to forecaster Jason Puma.
So we'll be working with our local emergency managers to figure out where we need to go and where those locations are, and we'll be working with them to get that information as fast as possible.
The National Weather Service got reports of possible tornadoes in Monroe, Brown, and Greene counties. A woman is dead and a teenager critically injured after a tree fell on a car in Greene County. The incident happening in Linton during these severe storms. I'm Jarrett Lewis, on the level, on the go, and at WIBC.com.
Tonight, partly cloudy, low temperatures in the lower 50s. For tomorrow, mostly sunny skies. Clouds will increase Sunday night. High temperatures getting into the mid-70s. I'm Wish TV, Storm Track 8 meteorologist Ryan Morse for 93 WIBC.
Good evening from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. I'm Brendan King with your 93 WIBC track update. Connor Daly crossing the yard of bricks, coming up just short for the Fast 12 as the gun goes to finish off qualifications day number 1 from 16th in Georgetown. Daly just short of Christian Lundgaard, who is the final man in the Fast 12 for tomorrow. Lundgaard 231.809. Daly, again, a minuscule 231.725, just short, as Daly will start 13th in the 109th running of the Indianapolis 500. And also, it's determined. The last row shootout tomorrow, it will feature these 4 drivers: Rinus VeeKay, Marcus Armstrong, Jacob Abel, and Marco Andretti. As for Colton Herta, who crashed earlier, he starts 29th. Brendan King, 93 WIBC.
Were you born from 1945 to 1965? People born during these years are 5 times more likely to have hepatitis C. But most people don't know they are infected. So even if you try to eat right, exercise, and take care of yourself, you can still have hepatitis C, a serious liver disease that often has no symptoms. In fact, people can live with hepatitis C for decades without feeling or looking sick. But over time, hepatitis C can cause serious health problems, including liver damage, liver failure, or even liver cancer. Getting tested is the only way to know if you're infected with hepatitis C. That's why the CDC recommends everyone born from 1945 to 1965 get a blood test for hepatitis C. Treatments are available that can cure this disease. So talk to your doctor about getting tested. It could save your life. A message from the CDC.
Don't stress about plumbing repairs. Call LD Smith for honest advice and a free second opinion on any estimate.
LD Smith Plumbing.
A dirty, stinking honest.
Indy Humane. Find your new best friend today. Visit indyhumane.org.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. This is the Second Amendment. And this is the Gun Guy.
Boom, 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 boom. Bang, 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 bang. Boom, 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 boom. Bang, bang, bang.
With Guy Relford on 93 WIBC.
Well, good afternoon and welcome to the Gun Guy Show. Starting a little bit late, but hey, we had a dominant win by our Indiana Fever, 35 points over the evil and despised Chicago Sky. So that was fun. And the postgame show, by the way, which was broadcast from right here in the studio, I got to watch that done live, was very well done. I was knocked out. I thought the Fever postgame folks did a really nice job with that. So congratulations to the Fever. Congratulations to the postgame crew here at WIBC. I'm glad to have the hour that I have with you, I will say. A couple of interesting things are going on. A very interesting article was published just this last week, and it was published in the Hoosier Journal. And I don't know the Hoosier Journal. I have nothing good or bad to say about it. An article is actually written by a gentleman named Evan Sheeran, Shearin. I hope I'm not mispronouncing that. I looked him up. Apparently, he was a political a candidate for political office in the past, and wrote this article, and it was on constitutional carry, which, as you know, if you listen to the Gun Guy Show, just went into effect July 1st, 2022, which did away with a requirement for Hoosiers or anyone else in Indiana, if you're over 18 and you're a law-abiding citizen, that is, you're not legally prohibited from possessing a firearm under state or federal law, that it did away with the requirement to have a handgun license. And this was a 10-year fight, and I've talked about that many, many times here on the show, and I won't repeat that whole discussion and that history, but it was a very contentious fight, and emotions ran high on both sides, and a lot of people tried to portray the debate as, gun nuts versus law enforcement. I heard that a lot. And there were certainly some very vocal, very respected leading members of law enforcement who were opposed constitutional carry. And at the same time, there were also, and this gets lost in the shuffle a lot of times and gets ignored by those folks who opposed the bill, there were also very prominent members of law enforcement who came out and supported it. But there are various arguments that were made for and against constitutional carry. And what this article in the Hoosier Journal does, and if you're interested in this, go to, I commend you to my Twitter or X feed. It's just at Guy Relford. I'm going to have to scroll down through a couple of posts, but it'll be right there. And I call it, I say a data-driven article that's generally well-written. I'm quoted in the article, and I was accurately quoted, which is always nice. It's not always the case. And what I like about the article is it very much attempts to be objective in the sense of using data. And it even uses statistical analysis. And listen, I was a double major in college in political science and psychology, and I had a perfect 4.0 in the psychology department until they made me take statistics, which was required for my major. And I hadn't really intended on a psychology major. It just kind of happened because I kept taking psychology courses because I found it interesting. And I had a perfect 4.0 in the psychology department at DePauw University until I had to take statistics. And not only did I get a C, I was thrilled with my C because after I took that test, I was fairly certain I had flunked it. So I was thrilled to get a C. So statistics are not my strong suit by any stretch of the imagination. But what I do know is the idea, the concept that sometimes you can measure differences in things, but those differences are not what we call statistically significant. That is, yeah, there's a difference, but is it different enough to draw any conclusions from? And that's what statistical analysis can show you. And that is, yes, there's not only a difference, but it's a statistically significant difference. And so the article focuses on that, and I don't want to bore you with that discussion of statistics, except I liked that sort of objective, rational approach to the issue. But the article looks at a number of arguments that were made on both sides. And for instance, those of us who fought for Second Amendment rights in the form of constitutional carry said that it would allow more law-abiding Hoosiers to exercise their rights, and the requirement for law-abiding Hoosiers to go beg permission from the government to exercise a right they already have, as guaranteed, not created, but as guaranteed by not only the U.S. Constitution but the Indiana Constitution, that requirement stood in the way of people bearing arms. That's what the Second Amendment protects, and that's what Article 1, Section 32 of the Indiana Constitution protects. And so the article, one of the first things they looked at is they said, was it true what the pro-constitutional carry people said, that permit requirements prevent Hoosiers from exercising their rights? And they came out with the conclusion that was not supported by the data that they've looked at since July 1st, 2022. And what they use as support for that is the data that says that background checks for new firearm purchases, while they went down to some degree, that there was no evidence that permits prevented lawful purchases. And let's just break that down a little bit. And I don't know that this is intentional. Again, I think the article sought to be objective and accurate and even-handed. And a lot of times when I read things in the media, you can just see that it's intentionally slanted. I don't think that's true here. I think it was the author searching for a way to measure something that was difficult to measure. Because what we're really talking about, because the argument wasn't less people are going to buy guns, and even look at how this is described. And there's, if you want to go to this, it's at HoosierJournal.substack.com, and the article's called Loaded with Consequences. And you can find it, or again, you can find it on my Twitter feed. But the way this, and there's a summary, and it's in sort of graph form, and it says background checks for new firearm purchases decreased, no evidence that permits prevented lawful purchases. Well, again, with as much respect as I can muster here, there's never been a permit required to purchase a gun. Permits have nothing to do with purchasing guns. That was a complete point of misinformation that we had to correct over and over and over again in the 10-year fight for constitutional carry that we finally won in 2022. We said, now anybody can buy a gun. No, it doesn't change the process for buying a gun. And to say there's no evidence that permits prevented lawful purchases, well, that's because permits have nothing to do with purchases. You don't need a purchase to buy a gun. That's just fundamentally flawed. And so, again, I'm not attributing malice here or any form of intentional deception, but that's incorrect. And do I think more law-abiding citizens are carrying guns today people that were always eligible to get a handgun license, but simply hadn't because they hadn't gone through the bureaucratic process of asking the government to please allow them to exercise a right they already had. Do I think more law-abiding citizens, exactly as we claimed would happen, that more of those law-abiding citizens are carrying guns today because of constitutional carry? There's no doubt in my mind. Now, I only have anecdotal evidence to support that. And if we're going to talk about statistics, or we're going to talk about objectivity and credibility, anecdotal evidence is by definition the least reliable point you can possibly make, or the least reliable support for whatever point it is you're trying to argue. But there's no doubt in my mind about it. Why? Because I talk to people all the time. They call my office, they call the show. Friends of mine, people I see in restaurants, it's like, hey, is it true that I can now carry a handgun without a license? Because I have a handgun. I've had a handgun for a while. I've just never gone and gotten that permit. And I'll say, yeah, if you don't have anything on your record, nothing that you've done or been convicted of prevents you from possessing a gun under state or federal law, you can absolutely carry a gun. They go, oh, awesome. I'll start carrying it very soon. And I always stress training and I always stress safety. But it's only anecdotal, and I have nothing to argue against the idea that there's not statistical support for the idea that more Hoosiers are carrying handguns than carried them before. But there's no doubt in my mind that that's true. But just to wrap that point up, to say that our argument that permit requirements prevented Hoosiers from exercising their right to bear arms is not supported because there's no statistically different number of people that purchased guns after constitutional carry. I'm sorry, that's missing the point. You could have had a handgun in your home for the last 10 years, but never carried it because you didn't have a license. So you didn't have to go out and buy a gun. And after constitutional carry passed, you realized you could lawfully carry it and decided to carry it. And you don't show up as a data point on the number of new gun purchases. So that's missing the point. And that was just, but I think it's more from people not understanding the combination of how law works today and what the issue really was. They also came out and said constitutional carry would reduce crime. That was a claim that we made as proponents of constitutional carry, and they said that's not supported. And they looked at overall violent crime, and then they looked at some particular numbers statewide. And some crime was down dramatically, in fact, statistically significant in terms of a decrease, and that's robbery in particular. Could you make the argument that's because people who are inclined to go out and commit robberies now have to worry more about law-abiding citizens carrying guns, and that robber now doesn't necessarily have workplace safety when he's going to go out and commit a robbery? Oh, hell yeah, you can. They said murder was down, but not to a statistically significant event or extent, I should say. Okay, but let's just focus here on Marion County here a little bit. Is murder down very significantly? In fact, I hate to say dramatically because the numbers are still way too high, but is murder down since July 1st, 22 in Marion County? Absolutely it is. And Mayor Hogsett and the knuckleheads over in the city county building want to come out and brag that somehow is attributable to some policies they have. I don't think so. I think you can make an argument that's directly attributable to constitutional carry. Do I have statistics that support that? No, I do not. But I think looking at murder in particular is something they should have done, and I think they should have done it in the larger cities. But let's keep going on this because it is interesting. And I know my buddy Kelly in Avon, who he's not a statistician, but statistics are a big part of what he does. He's also Assistant Director of Legislative Affairs for the Indiana Rifle and Pistol Association. Kelly is already on social media and on the chat on YouTube has already told me he's going to call in. We'll talk a little statistics, but I'm going to keep going through these because there is one thing that they say the opponents of constitutional carry argued that it turns out is supported by the data, and that's that law enforcement would be less able to prosecute gun-related crimes, and they're looking at specifically at clearance rates. That means cases that are filed and they either get a conviction or they're dismissed or they're pled out, but they clear gun cases, and clearance rates for weapons violations have dropped significantly. Here, we can talk about statistical significance. They say to a statistically significant extent, clearance rates for weapons violations have gone down since constitutional carry. So constitutional carry is inhibiting law enforcement's ability to prosecute gun-related crimes. I want to talk about that because let's assume that the compilation of data, the analysis of data is all or are all accurate. I want to talk about what that really means and dig down into that a little bit because, frankly, I think this actually supports an argument I made for constitutional carry, and I'll get into that when we come back. We're a little past the quarter hour, I should say. We're taking a break. Join the discussion. Give us a call, 317-239-9393. 317-239-9393. This is Guy Relford on The Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC.
Another update is just minutes away.
Trump with the troops. With the people that I really love and respect. Military will soon be bigger, better, stronger.
Hear the news.
A woman shot and killed along Massachusetts Avenue, pronounced dead at the scene.
As events happen.
The governor says the execution can proceed. The killer of a Beech Grove cop.
We'll happen to be there.
Pacers Eastern Conference Finals.
Game 3 being on the same day as the Indianapolis 500.
93 WIBC Mobile News.
Guy Relford for Tactical Firearms Training. You know, I just taught an Essentials of Indiana gun law class last Saturday out at Indy Arms. Had a full class, sold out, had a great group, asked great questions. We had great discussions. And everybody's been bugging me since then about when am I going to add another class. Well, I just did. It's on the website, just went up. On the Tactical Firearms website, we have a new class listed. You can sign up, and these classes always sell out, so I wouldn't wait long. It's Saturday, July 12th. There at Indy Arms, 2550 East 55th Street in Indy, just a block east of Keystone on 55th. It's going to be 9 a.m. to 2 o'clock p.m. This is 4.5 to 5 hours of the most important legal information you need as an Indiana gun owner, including a detailed discussion of the justified use of force in self-defense, including the justified use of deadly force in self-defense. If you carry a gun, certainly, even if you just own a gun or have a gun for home defense, these are issues you need to be completely educated on. That's exactly what we do in our Essentials of Indiana gun law class. Next one, Saturday, July 12th. It's $50 for an individual, $95 for couples. You can sign up right online at tactical-firearms.com. Just click on upcoming courses at tactical-firearms.com.
Comcast Business is celebrating Small Business Month by giving you a $1,000 small business bonus when you switch to a qualifying gig speed package from the company with over 99.99% network reliability. Just imagine the thousands of possibilities of a $1,000 prepaid card. Like possibility number 1, company merch for staff. Styling. Or possibility number 24, the latest software. Upgrade. Or possibility number 192, new equipment powered by gig speeds. Or possibility number 555, a 3D printer. Rapid prototyping, anyone? Switch to Comcast Business for over 99.99% network reliability, advanced cybersecurity, and now get started with a $1,000 small business bonus. Comcast Business, powering possibilities.
In 6/22/25, new customers only with 2-year agreement. Other restrictions apply.
You may not have 1,000 horsepower, but you're always racing, whether it's to work, to pick something up, or drop someone off. So go the distance, knowing Hubler's got you covered for 100,000 miles. Shop any of Hubler's 13 locations or visit drivehubler.com and choose from over 2,000 vehicles. Chevys, Fords, Toyotas, GMCs, Buicks, Nissans, Acuras, Mazdas, Hondas, and many more. All makes, all models, certified vehicles, luxury vehicles, even the hard-to-find ones. Plus, every Hubler Q-certified vehicle is covered by a 128-point vehicle inspection and a free Carfax history report.
'Cause Hubler
Hubler's got you covered. No matter where you're racing to, go the distance, knowing Hubler's got you covered for 100,000 miles. Visit drivehubler.com or any of our 13 locations. Cover me! Warranty on select models less than 9 years old.
Guys, don't waste time and money with low-quality online TRT that charges you over $100 just to start. Visit the TRT experts at the Low T Center for a free consultation and a free test. Treatment is personalized to your body, and most major insurances accept it. Looking to lose weight? Get a free B12 shot when you start prescription treatment right now at the Low T Center. Offer is limited, but book right now. FixMyLowT.com. That's FixMyLowT.com.
Are you having trouble hearing? Hearing loss can devastate the quality of your life. Now, there's an affordable fix for you or your loved one. Rated the best hearing aids of 2025 by Forbes Health, Audion Hearing has the highest quality hearing aids at the lowest prices, starting at just $98 a pair.
I actually like them better than my old $5,000 hearing aids.
I could not believe how my hearing and life changed.
Join over 1 million happy customers by going to audionhearing.com. That's AUDIEN hearing.com.
It's the Bash Sale, the biggest automotive sale in history. Your local Bill Estes dealerships are coming in hot with deals on trucks you don't want to miss. We have a huge selection of trucks at one easy online stop. Brand new Chevy, Ford, GMC, Jeep, Ram, and Toyota trucks with a massive pre-owned selection too. Plus, our fair and direct upfront pricing means what you see is what you pay. Shift into savings during the Bash Sale, only at Bill Estes dealerships, and drive away in your dream truck today. Online at BillEstesTrucks.com.
Race into Pierce Jewelers in Carmel and make a pit stop to purchase that unique diamond engagement ring that will put you in the winner's circle. Remember, shop local, shop smart, shop Pierce Jewelers. Through their service, veterans have our backs. Now we should have theirs. Learn more at gotyoursix.org.
Second to none on the Second Amendment. This is The Gun Guy with Guy Relford on 93 WIBC.
And welcome back. I'm Guy Relford on the Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC. You know, there were a number of other claims that this article looked at. If you're just joining us, I'm talking about an article written by a gentleman named Evan Sheeran, and it was published in the Hoosier Journal. I don't know the Hoosier Journal. Looked at a number of claims for and against constitutional carry, and then they said, well, all right, let's look at the data on gun-related issues that bear on these various claims that were made for and against constitutional carry. And we'll see, can we draw any conclusion? Who was right and who was wrong? And most of the things they say are simply not supported. For instance, the claim by law enforcement, and we heard this emotionally, we heard it emphatically, that law enforcement would face greater danger because more criminals are going to carry guns. It never made any sense to me because constitutional carry didn't apply to criminals. It didn't apply to dangerous people. And a criminal is certainly someone willing to shoot a police officer is not going to be worried about whether he has a license or not. If you're not worried about getting the death penalty for shooting a police officer, you're probably not worried about a Class A misdemeanor for carrying a handgun without a license. If you're not worried about 60 years in prison or the death penalty, you're probably not worried about, say, a year of probation for Class A misdemeanor, which is the most common penalty. So it was just goofy to me. It never made any sense. And listen, Superintendent of State Police at the time, he's since retired, my friend and a person I respect immensely, Doug Carter. Doug and I, we called each other everything but honest to the committee members when we would both be in testifying, me for and Doug against constitutional carry. But you know what? I love the guy completely. I would take a bullet for Doug Carter. I absolutely would. I love and respect Doug Carter, even though we completely disagreed on that issue. Because you know what? Before every one of those hearings, I would see Doug, or he'd see me, and one of us would walk up to the other one, and we'd shake hands and a hug and talk about, small talk and what's going on. And he'd always tell me to be safe. I always tell him to be safe. And then we get into these committee hearings where I would stand up and say everything he just said was complete BS. Or if if I went first, he'd stand up afterward and talk about how I'm misleading the committee. And we both believed entirely what we were saying at the time. There's no doubt in my mind. I think Doug is inherently an incredibly honest person. But one of the things he said, for instance, is that law enforcement would face greater danger. We'd have more injured or dead cops if we passed constitutional carry. And he was very emphatic about that. And I didn't believe that was true. And the data from other states that had passed constitutional carry years and years ago, or states like Vermont that have always had constitutional carry since 1791. Vermont's had constitutional carry, and it just the numbers didn't support it. That was looked at in this article, and the conclusion was no, assaults on officers with a firearm remain rare. They were rare before; they're still rare, and there was certainly no measurable increase in assaults on police officers. When we heard, and again, I don't mean any disrespect here to anyone, we heard that, oh my gosh, officers are going to be imperiled on a daily basis, and we're going to lose officers. Listen. Police officers have incredible amount of risk that they face every day, and I don't minimize that. But constitutional carry certainly did not, or simply did not contribute to that, did not increase that, and there's no support for the idea that it did. But one of the things that this article says is statistically significant, that supports the claims of people that oppose constitutional carry, including law enforcement, is they said, we will, the law enforcement claims from some law enforcement was we will have a harder time of convicting people of gun-related crimes if you pass constitutional carry. This allows us to convict people of gun-related crimes and get these criminals with guns off the street, and our ability to do so will decrease. An article came out and said, yes, clearance rates for weapons violations dropped significantly post-implementation of constitutional carry. And, I looked at that, and I said, you know what? This actually factors directly into an argument that I made during constitutional carry in favor of it, which is, the easiest gun-related crimes. I defend gun-related crimes. And by the way, when it says clearance rates for weapons violations in terms of criminal prosecutions and convictions, when it said those dropped significantly recently, I'm like, well, thank you. The number of cases I've won, I guarantee you, contributes to that decrease. Because I have clients who are accused of committing crimes with guns, and they're simply not guilty, and we're able to prove that they're not guilty, and we either get that case dismissed or we win it at trial. That's what I do for a living. So just saying we're able to convict somebody on a gun-related crime is a good thing, and if those rates go down, that's not necessarily true, because innocent people get accused of crimes all the time. And prosecutors overcharge. I've seen that all over the state, and we're able to go in and win a lot of cases. I know I do it for a living. But there's another issue here, too. Of all the gun-related crimes that exist in Indiana, and we're talking about the population of gun-related crimes that now suddenly the clearance rate's gone down across Indiana since constitutional carry. The easiest crime law enforcement's ever had, the easiest one to prove, the easiest one for law enforcement to prove, for prosecutors to convict on, the easiest crime is carrying a handgun without a license. Because they only have to prove two things. Did you possess a gun? And do you have a license or not? If you don't have a license and you were in possession of a handgun, you're guilty of the crime. Easiest crime on the planet. Carrying a handgun without a license. Do you have a handgun? Yes. Do you have a license? No. He's guilty. But here's the problem with that. And I know this because I've represented a whole number of these people, big number of these people. There are people out there that have gotten convicted, charged and convicted of carrying a handgun without a license, who are committing no other crime. They were doing nothing else but doing exactly what the Indiana Constitution, the people shall have the right to bear arms for the defense of themselves and the state. They had a right to do what they were doing. They were simply bearing arms. They were bearing a handgun. They were eligible for a license for whatever reason. They just hadn't gotten one yet. They're exercising a right guaranteed not only by Indiana Constitution, but by the federal Constitution, but they didn't have a license, so they got convicted. And to the extent that they say it's true that clearance rates for weapons violations have dropped significantly post-constitutional carry, I say hallelujah to the extent that that's attributable to people who were committing no other crime than doing what the Constitution says they can do. Constitution's plural, state and federal. But they hadn't gone and gotten permission from the government to exercise that right. I never want to see another person convicted of that crime again, ever. If that number goes to 0, which, by the way, the crime doesn't exist anymore after constitutional carry, that number goes to 0, I'll guarantee you that contributes to that to some degree. Does that account for the statistical difference? I don't know. But if it does, I say hallelujah, because that's the crime we wanted to do away with. I can give you chapter and verse of it, and if you heard me testify in the General Assembly about it, I used particular cases. One kid, 19 years old, client of mine, 2 jobs working, supporting his family, also a full-time student, had bought a gun, saved his money, a handgun, didn't want to have it in his house yet because he had 2 younger siblings. So he had it unloaded in a case under the seat of a 2-door pickup truck. It was a restored 70s pickup truck. Great kid named Max. One of my favorite clients ever. It was a 2-door pickup truck. A 70s pickup truck. Didn't have a back seat, didn't have a crew cab, nothing. Just a bench seat with nothing but a wall and a window behind it. Had the gun unloaded in the case under the seat as far as away from him as he could get it, because he didn't want to leave it in the house where he had ammunition when he had 2 younger siblings. And he'd ordered a gun safe for the house. Gun safe hadn't come in yet. And so he gets pulled over for speeding. He volunteers, because he's a good kid, tells the officer, "Sir, by the way, there's a gun in the car." "Really? Where is it?" "Well, it's unloaded, it's in a case, and it's on the other side of the truck under the passenger seat." And at the time, with our license requirement, you could have a gun in your car without a license if it's unloaded in a secure case and inaccessible from the passenger department. The officer says, "Well, if it's just under the passenger seat in your truck, that's accessible. I don't think that qualifies for the exception," and arrested him and prosecuted him, and the poor kid had to hire a lawyer. And you know what? If there were 1,000 Maxes out there who didn't get arrested for that ridiculous crime and therefore didn't get convicted of that ridiculous crime, and that contributed to clearance rates for weapons violations have dropped significantly, I say hallelujah. Hallelujah. And I'm okay with that. And the idea that the opponents of constitutional carry were right based on those numbers, oh, hell no. People aren't being convicted of a crime that should have never been a crime to begin with. That's the point. And I am way past the bottom of the hour. Let's take a break. When I come back, we can go to the phone lines. My buddy Kelly in Avon has called. He'll have some interesting numbers, as he always does. And before I get out of here, we have a very short show, given the Fever game. But I do want to talk about the fact that the issue around forced reset triggers has apparently been resolved by the federal government, and that is a very, very good thing. As the owner of a forced reset trigger, I'm pretty happy about that. Right now, we're taking a break. This is Guy Relford on The Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC.
Life moves fast.
We move fast. Get moving fast. It's not business as usual.
So does the news.
I could be a stupid person and say, "Oh, no, we don't want a free plane."
Decisions made today
The United States and China announcing a 90-day pause
could impact you tomorrow.
Goldman Sachs adjusting its 2025 economic outlook.
The issues and solutions.
What's next?
I'll let you know at the appropriate time.
Gotta stay tuned.
We're already tracking it.
Strong borders.
Stay in the know while you're on the go on 93 WIBC.
Turning 65, new to Medicare, or just moved? If you qualify for Medicare and Medicaid, a Humana Dual Eligible Special Needs Plan, a D-SNP, may give you the extra benefits you're looking for. A D-SNP helps cover things like prescriptions and checkups, but it also helps pay for essentials too. With a Humana D-SNP, you get $225 a month for eligible groceries, rent, utilities, and more. Plus, whatever you don't spend carries over to the next month. You may even get benefits like $0 copays on routine prescriptions, plus routine dental, vision, or hearing coverage. All of this could make a difference for your health and wallet. Learn more at GetHumana.com. Humana, a more human way to healthcare. Humana is a coordinated care HMO SNP plan with a Medicare contract and a contract with the Indiana Medicaid program. Enrollment in any Humana plan depends on contract renewal. Allowance amounts cannot be combined with other benefit allowances. Limitations and restrictions may apply.
Military veterans and active duty service members, you could become a certified cyber warrior with just 12 weeks of training at My Computer Career. Cybersecurity specialists are in high demand, and IT pros with these skills often enjoy abundant opportunity and a great lifestyle. Protect our people, liberty, and treasured institutions from cyber threats. SkillBridge and other VA benefits are available to those who qualify. Learn more at mycomputercareer.edu/CWP. That's mycomputercareer.edu/CWP.
With everything going on, it may be hard to imagine one more thing to worry about. But clothes dryers cause thousands of house fires every year, and dirty ductwork in your home is filling the air you breathe with pollutants and allergens. Should you worry? Not if you contact Safe Dryer and Air Duct Solutions, a locally owned, veteran-operated business offering fast, reliable duct and dryer vent cleaning services, making your home safer and your air healthier. WIBC listeners save 10% off any service. One less thing to worry about. Go to safedads.net.
This hour on WIBC is powered by Pierce Jewelers, designers of fine custom jewelry.
Fox News, I'm Roger Stern. They're cleaning up in the Midwest today after devastating weather, including tornadoes, killed at least 27 people. In St. Louis, resident Maurice Jones describes his harrowing experience.
Matter of moments of me making it to my front door, getting into the house. I tried to make it to the back of my house, and as I did, the door was sucked out of my hand as my roof was torn out from my house.
The Supreme Court blocked the Trump administration from deporting suspected Venezuelan gang members under the 18th Century Alien Enemies Act.
The decision is similar to others it has made in the past on the matter, revolved around the alleged illegal immigrants not having enough time to reasonably file a challenge to their deportations.
This is Deborah Valentine. America is listening to Fox News.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers. So we build specially adapted homes at Homes for Our Troops. And thanks to our donors and supporters, this life-changing gift of freedom is provided mortgage-free to these veterans. But we need you to join us, too, in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Nobody cares for you like family. Family Heating and Air.
Hey, this is Malia. We often get asked when is the best time to buy, and the answer is today, not tomorrow. With rising utility costs, rising product costs, and missed opportunity costs, which you could be saving with a high-efficiency system. Give us a call today to schedule your free in-depth estimate, 317-577-8077.
Family Heating and Air is your trusted local independent American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer.
My house has a new glow. I love my windows. Universal Windows Direct.
Right now, get 50% off your windows. That's half off, plus no interest and no payments for 12 months and a free entry door with your window purchase. Restrictions apply. Call 317-659-7574. Like me, you'll be saying, I love my windows.
I love my windows. They've got that brand new home effect. Universal Windows Direct.
The Memorial Day sale is on at Sundown Gardens in Westfield. 20% off container trees and shrubs. 186th Street and Spring Mill Road, sundown.gardens.com.
The Attorney General's office wants to put your money back in your pocket. Visit indianaunclaimed.gov and search for yourself, your loved ones, or your business. It's fast, easy, and free.
Look through your children's eyes, and you will discover the true magic of a forest. Find a forest near you and start exploring at discovertheforest.org.
Show about gun rights, gun safety, and responsible gun ownership. This is The Gun Guy with Guy Relford on 93 WIBC.
And welcome back. I'll tell you, with the short show, I've got the timing all screwed up. We're almost into the next break. I'm just coming back from the last one. But I'll tell you what, that having been said, I mentioned my friend Kelly in Avon. Kelly Myers is his name, and he's the assistant legislative director for Indiana State Rifle and Pistol Association. But long before he held that title, Kelly and I would spend a lot of time in the State House fighting for pro-2A bills, fighting against anti-2A bills. And Kelly, unlike me, is well schooled and well proficient in statistics. And Kelly, you've seen, and I'm sure you've analyzed this article in the Hoosier Journal, looking at the support and or opposition to constitutional carry and how that's borne out. What's your impression?
Well, Guy, thank you a lot for having me on. First off, what you've said in your show so far looks an awful lot like what I've got written down on my crib sheet here.
Well, I take that as a compliment because you always go right to the points that need to be addressed.
Well, the permit requirements preventing Hoosiers from exercising their rights compared to background checks for new firearm purchases.
Yeah, that's apples and oranges.
Oh, I said apples to meatloaf.
Yeah, there you go. I like that.
Not quite an ice cream to Tuesday comparison, but apples to meatloaf is what I called it, because one doesn't have anything to do with the other.
Exactly.
Now, 2, 3, and 6 on this would reduce crime, would increase crime, and law enforcement would face greater danger. Mm-hmm. They showed none of those supported. That is exactly what my testimony in 2022 showed, looking at 10 years worth of data from the FBI with states that adopted constitutional carry kind of right in the middle of that 10-year range.
Yep.
And it was basically, it made no difference. And that was my testimony. And to be honest, I went down that route because of what Doug Carter said in testimony in 2021, when his exact words were, more cops are going to die if you pass this. And I said, I'm going to prove him wrong if it doesn't pass this year. And that's why I went down the road there I did.
Yep.
Now, you also hit on, the what they call it, the closure rate for gun-related crimes.
Yeah, including carrying a handgun without a license, which is no longer a crime.
Yeah, well, that decreased 7.7%. At the same time, the number of average cases per month went up 7.1%. So if you take out the ones which were just you had a handgun and you don't have a license, you take those out, you've got the harder cases. You've got the more hardcore criminals you're dealing with.
Let me give you an example. For instance, a crime that I don't have a major problem with, I would revise how it's written, but the law I don't have a major problem with is possession of a firearm by a serious violent felon. Now, those, for instance, if those went up, but simply carrying a handgun without a license went down, and how is that a bad thing?
Yeah, and I remember in the testimony I gave, because it didn't break it out as far as who was a prohibited possessor that murdered a police officer.
Yeah.
But it did show how many were on parole or probation at the time, and it was 61%.
Yeah.
So it's more than 61% were prohibited possessors when they murdered a police officer.
Exactly.
So that's a huge flag there for me.
Yep.
Oh, also with the gun thefts one that they looked at, they said was inconclusive. Well, in 2020, I'm kind of pulling this up from memory. In 2020, seems like there were 8 million new gun owners, and that was before the Summer of Love. That was when people were hoarding toilet paper and paper towels. We got that many new gun owners. So there's a whole lot more guns out there.
Yep. Overall, Kelly, and listen, I need to go into this next break, but I'm really glad you called, and I want to get you on. Overall, I mean, do you have the same impression of this article as me, which is it misses the mark, it misses the point in a number of areas, but I didn't take it as malicious. I took it as someone trying to look at what data were available and drawing what conclusions they could. They just kind of missed the mark. I think more from an unfamiliarity with firearms or the actual underlying issues associated with firearms that really were applicable to constitutional carry.
I really took it that way myself. I think if he would have been at the State House with us during those years, I think he would have probably started in 2021, because he also left out the Senate bill that we testified in support of that Jim Toms wrote that didn't get out of committee.
Yeah.
That was for that. So there was a lot of other moving pieces, and I think if he would have been in the State House then, I think he'd had a little different view. I did see he ran against Andrea Hunley. You know her. She stared daggers at both you and me during testimony a couple times.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, and well, I figure Boss Hogg and Ryan Mears got 73% of the vote in that district too, so I won't hold that against Evan. But now she's always been cordial. She's always been polite to me. But yeah, I've seen the video. She stared daggers at me before while I'm testifying.
I got you. Well, you know what? Over the years, Kelly, I'm so used to anti-Second Amendment people doing that to me, including one particular chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee from time to time, as I recall. That doesn't just bother me a whole lot. Tell you what, let's take a break. We'll come back for a very short segment. And I just want to throw out the results on this forced reset trigger issue. Probably won't have much more time than that, but I'm going to get that out because I teased it on social media. We'll do that when we come back. This is Guy Relford on The Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC.
The pothole. Formed in colder months, tiny fissures are born, and in no time at all, they grow into big, gigantic tire killers. That's why you need Matt Baird Traffic.
Watch out on Keystone Avenue.
He'll guide you around these hidden monsters.
Yeah, might as well call it a basement.
And on to safer ground.
You don't want to be in the far left lane.
Mornings and afternoons on 93 WIBC.
You let him try violin because you love him. And if you love him that much, love him enough to make sure he's buckled up and in the back seat. Find out more at nhtsa.gov/the-right-seat. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
You love spring and indies, so don't spend it painting. Do what your neighbor Mike did. He called Rhino Shield.
Our home is basically a contemporary, and we just started noticing that the paint was just fading and just looked like garbage. We had received a postcard from Rhino Shield, and we decided to take a look at it.
Rhino Shield's formulated for our specific climate here in Indiana.
The process with Rhino Shield and their crew, they were just very conscientious. We had problems in the past with painters. They leave debris and everything. Well, we didn't have that with Rhino Shield.
Way better than paint, backed by a 25-year warranty. Right now, get the guaranteed protection of Rhino Shield for 15% off the regular price.
The thing about the Rhino Shield, the heat gain has been reduced, and we save $70 a month. You don't hear that about any type of paint.
Here's Rhino Shield's Shane Smith.
This offer is limited, so call me at 888-RHINO-41. That's 888-RHINO-41.
Don't paint.
Don't vinyl.
Go Rhino.
Never paint your house again. Rhino Shield.
Why'd I go to the doctor? My heart would race just taking my son to practice. It didn't feel right. So I got checked out. Turns out I have atrial fibrillation, which increases the risk of stroke about 5 times.
Symptoms like irregular heartbeat, heart racing, chest pain, shortness of breath, fatigue, or lightheadedness can come and go. But if it's AFib, the risk of stroke remains. If you have symptoms, contact a doctor.
I'm so glad I did.
Visit notimetowait.com. Sponsored by Bristol-Myers Squibb and Pfizer.
The deals and specials are sizzling hot. It's the Central Indiana Gun and Knife Show next Saturday and Sunday at the Hendricks County Fairgrounds in Danville. The best dealers in the region. Hundreds of tables. Just $6 for adults. Kids 12 and under get in free. Must be 18 or accompanied by an adult. Buy, sell, trade. Next Saturday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. and Sunday, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the Hendricks County Fairgrounds in Danville. For more info, visit CentralIndianaGunShows.com.
Many nonprofits struggle with staffing issues. But through the Senior Community Service Employment Program, or CSEP, 501(c)(3)s with limited budgets can get cost-free supplemental employees while helping train people 55 and over for a new career. Trainees are motivated, reliable employees, and their wages are completely covered by the Indiana Department of Workforce Development. To learn more, go to backtowork.dwd.in.gov. That's backtowork.dwd.in.gov.
Addiction doesn't just affect one person, it touches everyone around them. That's why Matt Baer and Ryan Hedrick created the Supporting Sobriety podcast. It's for the friends and family standing behind, offering hope, guidance, and real talk. Listen now wherever you get your podcasts. Your rights, your responsibilities, your guns. This is The Gun Guy with Guy Relford on 93 WIBC.
Well, welcome back. And this will be a bit of a short segment. But as I teased on social media, the Justice Department, and listen, this was part of an announced initiative that President Trump put out there, along with Attorney General Pam Bondi, that said that Trump had asked the Department of Justice to look at all the pending litigation, criminal prosecutions and otherwise, that they had involving 2A issues, Second Amendment issues, and asked them to reevaluate their position to make sure that government wasn't taking positions that were contrary to the Second Amendment. And they've done that. They've looked at a number of cases, and that initiative resulted directly in an announcement that just came out yesterday, and that is the government has resolved a number of cases that involve forced reset triggers, in particular the rare breed forced reset trigger. What's a forced reset trigger? It's just what it sounds like. It's a trigger that as you pull it, the trigger mechanism itself, and this is done, there's also called a super safety, which it uses a little different mechanism, but the trigger essentially forces itself to reset. And it usually uses the action of the bolt carrier group coming back. Again, they're a little bit different mechanistically, but they forces itself to reset, and all you have to do is maintain firm pressure back on the trigger, and the gun continues to fire because the trigger forcibly resets and then shoots again. And what that's able to do is it's able to rapidly fire the gun. Does it sound full auto when you shoot one? Yes. But it's still a semi-auto because the trigger has to be pulled for every shot. The fact that it resets in between shots doesn't change the fact it's semi-auto. The government has conceded that. That litigation is over. And if you have a forced reset trigger, that's a good thing. This is Guy Relford on the Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC.
You may not